This video will cover the request workflow. Let's proceed to first see the default request workflow and see how to add a request workflow. Search the default request workflow and click on the Edit option. Whenever a request is created in the tool, it's labeled as Open and New, and an email is promptly sent to the end user for confirmation. Following that, once a technician responds to the email, the request status changes to In Progress Analysis. From there, if necessary, the request can be escalated. If further details are required from the end user, the request is put on hold. Once the resolution has been identified, the request can be marked as Resolved, which triggers a confirmation email to notify the end user that their request has been addressed. After the resolution has been provided, the technician has the option to close the request, completing the cycle of default workflow. It's important to note that in many organizations, approvals are required from the reporting manager or from the approval team to proceed with the requests and provide the components of the process of request. Now, let's explore how to configure a new request workflow that incorporates the approval from either a reporting manager or an approval team. To start this process, return to the Workflow module, click on Add a new workflow, and select Request. This allows the users to create a new request workflow when initiated. Will have the status Open and New. Introduce a new state for sending requests for approval. Upon reaching this state, Approval State can be enabled to obtain the necessary green light from either the reporting manager or the designated approval team. The status will show as Submitted for approval. The approval can come from the reporting manager or from the approval team. At this point, select the appropriate approval team, and here's the message that the approval team member will see. Upon clicking Save, once the approval is received, the request status can be upgraded to Resolved, State, and Request Approved. Status. If the approval is visible, or if it has been rejected, technicians can resolve the situation by stating Request Rejected. Should the approval be granted, it will move on to the Result Request Approval state. From there, the request can reach a closure. Similarly, if the request is rejected, it can be closed with a status of Rejected. In instances where numerous approvals are required, technicians can set up the necessary approval states within the workflow. Technicians have the flexibility to add or customize these states to suit specific needs. Once ready, click Publish. The workflow will be active. Now, let's proceed by creating a request to understand how the approval sequence operates within the workflow. Navigate to the Request module and select New Request. The end user will then input the subject of the approval, for example, RAM upgradation, and subsequently make a request for an asset. An internal note for clarification of the request is mandatory. Afterwards, the service is selected, and the necessary internal notes are provided. To submit, simply click on Submit as New. Upon submission, the request is created and ready for the technician to start working on it. The technician, upon receiving the request, will forward it for approval. They will click to select Submitted for Approval status. At this point, they will choose the appropriate team and submit the request for consideration. The team member on the approval panel will receive the request, complete with a reason such as, "The system is very slow because of RAM." If the team member concurs with the necessity, they will approve the request, and once it's approved, the request will proceed towards resolution. To finalize the request, simply click on Complete. Confirm the action by clicking Complete once more. Once clicked on Complete, the request will be marked as completed. This way, technicians can create multiple request workflows based on the requirements of various team members or organizations.